Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends for
It's time for another conversation. This is Making It Last podcast. I'm your host, Noreen Daly, and with me is Patricia Grant. You know, there's so many things I could say about this woman, but who is Patricia Grant?
I really didn't expect this question, but I'm always prepared for this question. Patricia Grant is a very dedicated, committed youth leader, first and foremost.
Okay.
A child of God, of course. I am a jovial person. I'm very friendly. I'm one of the most unpredictable person there is.
I love it.
Yes,
I love it.
yes.
I love it. Now, those of you who would have been listening to this podcast for a while, you would know that this podcast is all about helping people to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people. And recently, Patricia, I was in a space at church, and we're speaking about the whole idea of the church being a safe space so that people, when they're going through certain challenges,
Right.
they feel comfortably enough. So it then influenced this topic, which is how can the church be seen as a safe space, specifically for youths,
Right.
and your capacity as a youth leader, I know you can speak to that,
Yes.
resulting in them having healthier relationships.
All right. So, when I got the topic from you, I smile because of very recent times, it has been something that has been on my mind. And it's something that I have been talking about. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I am very passionate about youth ministries per se. And one of the things I realize is that too many of our young people are leaving church. And when you look at the reasons why they're leaving, they're simple reasons. Some of them, there are no reasons at all as to why people are leaving the church. They're not comfortable. It's not somewhere where they actually feel safe. It's not somewhere where they can actually be themselves. And so one of the things we must remember as a church, we're not just there for the message. And we're not saying change the message.
Right.
What we're saying is change the approach. Because the truth is, time changes. And with time, we must move with the time or we're going to lose our young people. One of the things that we need to encourage in the church is to move away from just planning programs. As Seventh-day Adventists, we plan wonderful programs. We plan great programs. But that's not it. That's not it. We need to understand the role of the church in regards to it being a safe haven for our young people. When we look at the different areas in the church, if you look at every different department in the church, the young people should benefit from every single department in the church.
That's true.
If you look at the deacon and deaconess department, the young people should benefit from the church.
But somebody who's listening that wouldn't understand that because they're not Adventist.
Right.
What happens for that particular
That's what I'm going to tell you now. That's what I'm going to tell you now. So for the deacon and the deaconess department, it's more than just going and opening the church and cleaning up the churchyard. It's a very important role. And while those are some aspects of it, so the deacon and the deaconesses are basically the mothers and fathers of the church. So they help to clean up. They help to make sure the church is ready for Sabbath. They ensure that the persons on the outside who are idling while church is happening, they're on the inside. But we don't see that anymore. When I was growing up, once we were outside, deacon and deaconess coming outside to tell us to come inside. Another role is the women's ministries department, the men's ministries department. It's not just about planning a nice Women's Day program. It's not just about planning a wonderful Men's Day. But the men of the church should be able to take the young men of the church and nurture them. That's one of the role of the men's department. The same thing for the women's department. Take the females, talk to them about their hygiene, their body, their self-esteem. These are the things that we need to look on as a church. As a youth leader, one of the things I always say, because I've done training with other youth leaders, as well as I'm the AY leader now for Berry Hills, Seventh-day Adventist Church. And so when I'm saying youth leader, it's not just about going and planning programs on Sabbath. It's about becoming a friend to your young people. A lot of the times, our young people, they're not comfortable talking to their parents for whatever reason. The tradition in Jamaica is that you don't talk to your parents about certain things. So you won't go to your parents. Most of us won't go to our parents and say, oh, mommy, daddy, I have a boyfriend. Or there's this guy that I like. That's the tradition. Yes, that's not the tradition here in Jamaica. And so as youth leaders, as a church, we must be in the position where our young people are not afraid to talk to us. We must ensure that our young people know that they can come and talk to us, seek advice from us, in whatever area of their life it is. We must also ensure that we teach our young people to be leaders and not followers. And so if we don't influence our young people in the church, they're going to be influenced elsewhere.
That's right.
They're going to be influenced elsewhere. And so we must, and it's not just about talking to them about being leaders and not followers. It's showing them. It's showing them.
We must model the behavior that we want.
We must model the behavior that we want. And so the church is more than just a church for big programs and the rules and prophecies. And I'm not saying that's not important. It is. But at the same time, we must remember that our young people need somewhere to look to. And the fact is, with the world of technology and all that's happening now, we live in a world where things are changing. Times are changing. And our young people have and I'm not saying that back then we were not influenced. We were. But as time changes, there are more things that will distract us from the word of God. And so we must ensure that even in something where we might not consider important, like fostering healthy relationships, we move with the times.
How do we do this, though? Because we're saying that it needs to happen. But how do we do this specifically within the church? So our young people start feeling comfortable to share whatever struggles that they continue to have.
The church needs to become a church of practicality. We must become a practical church. One of the things that I implement in my church, and I see it happening, is at the beginning of the year, we have a rap session with our young people. We find out what it is that they want, and we guide them. So we're not changing the message or diluting what we believe, but we're taking what they're saying and we're putting it with what we know and we're making it work.
Nice.
So we must listen to our young people. There's a huge generation gap in a lot of churches, and the generation gap is because the persons from back then don't believe that they should, the youth or the young people have a voice in the church. And it's funny, but these things still happen. Young people cannot talk in the church. And we must move away from that. If it is, I always say, if it is that we have to bridge the generation gap. And it's not impossible. We can bridge the gap. One of the things I always say is that you cannot always be on the end of reprimanding the youth. You have to build a relationship with them first, and then you can reprimand them. So I'll say there are some elders that can tell me anything. And if I'm doing something wrong, as soon as they're coming, I know I'm supposed to stop. But then there are some elders who I really don't care. And so you really have to get to the place where you build a relationship first. And once you have a relationship with the young people, then it's always easier to correct them and to guide them. But our young people they're open-minded. They're living in a generation where the government say, look here, you can't beat Pitney. And so you have to find another way to guide them. Yeah. So we know that there are a lot of young people who really don't have any manners. We know that there are a lot of young people who really are just outright rude. But you can't fight fire with fire.
That's right.
You really can't.
I noticed you said earlier that we need to ensure that we listen and being open. But I think one of the things we have to ensure that we remind our listeners, especially those who are in certain leadership positions in the church, is that you have to try when you're listening not to be judgmental.
Yes. So you don't listen to respond.
Yeah.
But you listen actively with the intention to help. So you can't come with a closed mind. You have to come with an open mind. And we always say this, and it sounds naive. It's not naive, it sounds cliche, that when you're doing these things, you pray about it first. But it really helps. Important. It is important. Yeah.
We've said a lot, but if there's somebody still skeptical and they're saying, but it's easy for you to say this, but sometimes the young people I have to deal with, and I'll resort to vernacular, then guitar key.
True.
Yeah.
True.
What would be your response to somebody who's still, being quite skeptical and cynical about this whole process?
I can tell you from experience, try to approach it a different way. So maybe the method that you've tried doesn't work. Try another method. There are different ways of getting our young people to listen to you. Try. And I can tell you, as a young person myself, if a young person respects you,
that is true.
They will listen to you, and they'll respect you wholeheartedly. But it can't be that you don't have a relationship with the young person, but you want to reprimand them. And look, I'm not saying, you get up one day and you have a relationship with them. It doesn't work that way. It does take time. It takes time, it takes prayer, and it takes effort.
Yeah. What is the final idea you'd want to leave? That if they got nothing else from this conversation, this is the one idea that will resonate with them. What would that idea be?
I know it's a burning passion it's thought for me, and it's something that I know a lot of persons are thinking about. Too many of our young people are leaving the church. Don't sit down and judge them. Don't talk about them not being there. Don't wait until they leave the church to show that you care. Show that you care when they're in your presence. I would encourage I'd encourage every elderly member to adopt at least one youth and to be a mentor for that youth. Be a friend to that young person. And when I say be a friend, I mean be a true friend. Talk to the young person. And they won't be open with you the first day you meet them, but process. Build conversation. Yeah. It's a process. We know how it goes when we're trying to foster friendships. We know. So try and foster a friendship, a good relationship with at least one young person.
If everybody takes that approach,
we'll be somewhere.
Yeah, and we will. That generation gap will no longer exist.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people. And let us make the effort to create that safe space in our church for our young people. So it's not just about making sure that they stay, but just so that it will help them to have healthier relationships. I'm Noreen Daly. Until next time.
Loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives.